Welcome to That's Canon, a podcast talking about the Canon film series and other similar movies. This is episode 30, and I'm your host, Phil.
And I am a quitter.
Did you make it through the movie, Greg?
Well, it's kind of a soft DNF, I'm gonna say.
Oh, yeah.
About an hour-ish in, I was pretty much tapped out. I was starting to play on my phone. I recorded that GIF of me pretending to fall asleep watching it while the movie was running. Yeah, this was it was bound to happen eventually. Like you've said in a couple times before this. DNF for me, dude.
Nice. I love it. I absolutely love it because they classify this movie. Making the Grade is the movie that we watched, a 1984 film directed by Dorian Walker. It is categorized as a comedy. I don't know what movie they watched. I don't think I laughed once throughout the entire thing.
No. Yeah, same here. I think the only time that I laughed was after it was over. And I thought back to like, shit, what's the quote of the week going to be? And I thought back to what the housekeeper said in the very beginning. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to spoil the quote of the week right now because it's so applicable to how I approach a lot of the movies. And this one, it was just so perfect. The housekeeper, she's like a housekeeper for this really rich family, and it's the first scene in the movie. We fade into this big mansion, and we see a housekeeper, knocking on the door and trying to like wake up the kid in that room. And she opens the door, and the room is a total pigsty. It's like, and she like puts on a mask because of how smelly it is, I guess. And the stupid little rich brat says, you got to clean up this room. What are we paying you for? And she says, I ain't paid enough to do this job. Nobody's ever been paid enough to do this job. And it was just so perfect because that's kind of how we approach some of these movies, right? Where she, she opened the door and she saw how nasty it was in that room, but she didn't want to walk in, but she's like, you know what? It's my job. I got to do it. And that's how we kind of approach some of these movies where we know they're going to be shit, but dang it, if we don't do it, the job's not going to get done. But
exactly.
But this movie, I ain't paid enough to do this job.
I'm surprised by how bad this movie is.
Yeah.
So it stars Judd Nelson. Now, this is one of his earliest movies, right before he hit it big with The Breakfast Club. It actually goes Rock and Roll Hotel, Making the Grade, and then The Breakfast Club. The people who made The Breakfast Club, John Hughes, must have not watched Making the Grade. Else I never would have cast Judd Nelson in a movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of astounding how different his performance is just in terms of quality between that movie and this one and this one. So much better. I mean, I don't know, maybe credit to John Hughes for getting that performance out of him. I don't know.
What do you think of Judd Nelson overall? I find him enjoyable. I think he's a really good actor. But his filmography is so all over the place.
Spotty.
Would you classify him as a good actor or just an actor?
I don't know if I can make a good judgment call because this was I've only ever seen Breakfast Club before this, so I've only seen him in 2 movies, and I really didn't see him in this one. If you know what I mean, like I just kind of wasn't paying attention. But he was good in Breakfast Club. I thought he played a convincing kind of troubled kid character. He seems like he's got talent. Just didn't come across here. That's for sure. I don't know.
That's for sure. The film also stars a guy named Dana Olson. He plays Palmer Woodrow. Now, Palmer is, I guess, the secondary main character. He's a rich. The whole premise of the film is that Palmer has to go to prep school. So he hires Judd Nelson to do it for him. And Palmer just goes off and does something else. And we don't see him for like pretty much the majority of the movie, right? Yep,
like the whole first half, I think.
It's interesting because he's only done 2 other acting roles beyond this, but he actually is a writer. He wrote a couple TV
Really?
shows. He wrote Inspector Gadget, the
The
movie.
one with
He was
Matthew
like the main
Broderick?
writer for it. Yeah.
Wow.
And George of the Jungle.
Oh.
And one of my favorite movies, The Burbs, starring Tom
Tom Hanks.
Hanks.
Wow. So
Yeah. So
he's got some cred.
it's kind of interesting that they have obviously talented people in this movie
Yeah.
and they just don't really go anywhere. Uh Another notable person in this film that might not be seen or known, the guy who played Blimp, the fat guy in the prep
Get
school.
it? They call him
Remember him?
Blimp because he's fat. I
Yeah.
hate this movie.
Uh that's Dan Schneider, who's known for Good Burger, all that, the Abanda Show. He's like made all of these Nickelodeon shows
Wait, in as an actor or as like a behind the camera guy?
behind the camera. Like he like created those shows.
Really? That's so you're
Yeah.
telling me that this guy is responsible for some like touchstone Nickelodeon golden age shows.
Oh yeah. Good Burger, King and the Keenan and Kel, the Amanda Show, all that.
Wow.
Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, iCarly. I mean, those are past our time, but these are still
St-
really big
yeah, and
shows.
I would argue those later ones are still part of that kind of Nickelodeon golden age. So that wow,
Yeah.
that I guess good for him for finding a niche
So that's kind of interesting that they had all this talent wrapped up in this
in
movie.
this poop flavored shell that we call a
Yeah,
movie.
and they just couldn't squeak anything out. Um, Granted, the movie was written by the guys who wrote Police Academy 3, Police Academy 4. So
Uh-huh.
maybe the people,
Mm,
behind the camera weren't necessarily the best.
are to blame. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
well, I had no idea that makes it a little bit more depressing to know that there was so much raw talent that they had at their fingertips and just squandered it.
exactly. Let's go ahead and let's talk about the movie a little bit.
Or the parts of it that we saw or paid attention to.
Yeah, this one was, again, like we just said, it was a pretty brutal
It was a
watch.
grind.
It did start off with, something I guess we can all appreciate, which is the maid, like you said, getting ready to go inside of Palmer's room. Obviously, like it's a mansion, right? So
Huge.
it's this very beautiful place, and then in comes a maid. She masks up because it's so germy and whatnot. That was, again, it's already your quote of the week. That is like the highlight of the movie right there.
It really is. I ain't paid enough to do this job. Nobody's ever been
Yeah,
paid enough to do this job. Great.
it's insane. Uh, they set up the story really quick though. I will give them that. Essentially, Palmer, the rich kid, has to go to prep school, else he's going to get cut off from his dad's money.
Can't have that.
So, what do? He hires someone to go for him. That's when we cut to Judd Nelson. Now, the one thing I always find funny about movies is that they kind of romanticize being poor or being like destitute, right?
Yeah, the kind of like low life street rat lifestyle, I guess.
Because Judd Nelson, he drinks coffee in his car, he gets it percolating. His car is kind of cool because it has like a neon sign, and he seems really happy about his really bad lot in life.
hmm
And we see him kind of go throughout the day. He goes to a hot dog vendor. That's Ronald Lacey,
He
the
looked awfully
Nazi
familiar.
from I almost said Lord of the Rings, the Nazi from Lord of the Rings, the Nazi from
What
Indiana Jones.
did we watch different Lord of the Rings? Is that the new Amazon Lord of the Rings? They
Yeah,
like do major
exactly.
rewrite. That's why everyone's walking off that set is because they've got Nazis in
They got Nazis in it,
it.
Nazi orcs.
But that's crazy.
Uh,
That's the guy who chases what's her name down in the bar and gets his hand burned.
mm-hmm,
Oh man, I knew he looked so
it
familiar.
is. And this is the second one
Yeah.
because he was in Sahara
Mm-hmm.
and
Wow.
Red Sonja. So this is the second or third appearance of Ronald Lacey,
And
and that's canon.
talk about again, yeah, there's so much talent in this movie. And it just
It's insane.
wow, it's unrecognizable under all the crap that they're saying.
And it kind of is. They have Ronald Lacey. He's a hot dog vendor, and he used to be a maitre d' at a very fancy restaurant. It plays nothing into the movie though. It's just a character quirk.
Yeah.
Um, and Judd Nelson, he starts getting chased by some loan sharks. He owes some guys some money, and the mob boss or the guy he ultimately owes money to is Andrew Dice Clay, who I will say is probably the most subdued actor in the entire film. He is not his normal Andrew Dice Clayness, where he's foul mouthed and vulgar. He was actually pretty decent in this movie.
Yeah, compared to everyone else, he was the least one of the least hateable, annoying characters, I'd say. Just kind of like a
Yeah.
generic sort of kind of like a mob boss kind of guy. That's if you can imagine that kind of character, that's what he was playing.
So Judd Nelson owes the Dice Man some money, and that's his name in the movie too.
Yeah,
Is the Dice Man.
that was kind of an eye roll moment for me when I realized that. It's like
Exactly.
he couldn't remember
Uh
fake names, they just named him the same thing.
it's like when Joey Lawrence is in something, they just call him Joey. Like, does he not have enough smarts to realize that he's playing someone else?
Duh, no, I'm
Right.
Joey.
Yeah. Charlie Sheen is usually called Charlie and stuff.
Oh, dice.
So Judd Nelson owes the Dice Man some money. Meanwhile, Palmer, the rich guy, is off playing golf with his friends, and that's when he starts scheming on how to pay someone to go to prep school for him so Palmer can go off and jet set, right? And he's with his best friend Rand. Rand is played by Carrie Scott, who has been in lots of other things, but has yet to re-achieve, I guess, having a name in the credit, right? It's usually priest or,
Oh,
profession.
like a one
Uh,
line walk on role or something. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I was in Making the Grade.
He looked kind of familiar to me too. And I think it was more because he reminded me of his look reminded me of the little kid from Honey I Shrunk the Kids.
Yes,
Remember that kid?
There's two things that he reminded me of. One was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. The other one was Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors, the guy who's in the wheelchair in it.
Yeah. Yep. Good call.
I think that's that curly
Yeah, it's
hair.
a curly kind of like dark brown hair and the big glasses that I think were popular then. It's just that combination. And he's kind of like a little wiener kid, kind of a little nerd squeak.
Wiener kid.
I don't know. I'm kind of a wiener kid. We can smell our own. Um,
I love it. I love it.
but yeah, it's kind of I actually didn't mind his character so much. He played a good sort of nerdy sidekick, which I'm sure is why they cast him. But he was all right.
Yeah, what famous character though in science fiction does he remind you of? Oh, you said Spock. Okay, yeah, you're right, Greg. He was also young Spock in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Hey, wait, did I say Spock? When did I say Spock?
I could hear it through not Culinar, because that's the wait, is it Culin? That's when you purge all
Yeah,
emotion.
that's the
And
purge all.
Pomfar is when you have
I'll say you
sex.
didn't. We did
Um
not. No Ponfar. This is the mind meld.
we mind melded
Yeah.
with
Okay.
each other
And
over the internet.
there we go. And like
And I could
against my will and without me
you
knowing
were
it.
like, Spock.
Spock, man, I can't believe I missed a Star Trek connection. Now that sucks.
I know, right? I usually, well, probably because he's uncredited, so you don't really get to like see him in it,
Yeah, that's
right?
fair.
It's probably so quick
And I have
that you don't really notice.
a lot of the original series movies I've only seen 2 or 3 times tops.
Also, number 5 sucks. That's the one where they go find Space Jesus,
Yeah, nah, it's gonna be a no for me, dog. It's gonna be Star Trek 4 Voyage Home for me all day, every day.
which for some reason people are like reassessing Star Trek 5 and are actually saying that it's good, but
No, they're wrong.
it's not. It'll never be good.
Well, once again,
Um,
we've out of sheer subconscious desperation have digressed into Star Trek discussion because our minds are trying to shield us from the pain of talking about this movie.
Yes. So as Judd Nelson, he starts getting chased by the Dice Man's goons. He ends up going into the golf course where Palmer's at. And through happenstance and hiding inside of a locker, all three of them, all three of the kids meet up. And Palmer's like, "Oh, okay. Do I have to like interview for you for this job? How do I know that you're going to be able to do prep school?" And the nerdy little friend is kind of like, "He doesn't even look like us. We're rich and he's poor. Class systems." And this is like all ADR dialogue as they jump into a red car and start driving away from the goons, right?
Yeah, like just like that, he's got the job. It's all very rushed on how they actually recruit Judd Nelson into this whole scheme.
Which good on them. It took 15 minutes for them to get to the school, right? To
Yeah,
get to the prep school. As they arrive, Judd Nelson dresses in what he thinks rich people do or wear, which is this very bright red suit thing, and he's listening to music on a boom box.
so
And
80s.
all the prep people are like, "Oh my god, who the hell is this guy?"
Gah! They do this like really annoying thing where they all literally stop in their tracks and slow turn their head toward to look at Judd as he pulls up in this car with his stupid outfit.
Exactly.
Uh,
The nerdy little friend Rand comes up and is kind of like, "This isn't what we do here." He's
well,
like,
I never.
exactly. Uh, and then they have this montage of shopping where Rand goes, "You have to wear preppy clothes, and when you wear preppy clothes, you have to wear multiple layers." And then in this store, Rand goes up to random people and he like grabs a woman. He's like, "This is preppy." And then he goes up to a random guy and he's like, "This isn't," because he looks kind of schlubby, right?
Yeah. These poor people, these poor random
Exactly.
schlubs.
And I get what they're trying to do, kind of like make fun of preppy people
Yeah, this is
and
the fun makeover scene. Like any of these kind of like mistaken, hidden identity, fish out of water kinds of things. There's always that makeover scene where they transform. You got to like look the
yeah,
part,
the
right?
the pretty woman scene,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. They're dressing him up to fit in with the preppy crowd, and it's just kind of boring and kind of annoying.
It's boring, it's not fun, and all of the jokes land so far left that it's more annoying
Yeah.
seeing Rand, who you don't see as a preppy person. You don't see him in that world be just kind of cringy.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're trying to do two things with that character. Like he needs to be he's either the nerdy kid who doesn't quite fit in himself, but he's smart and he's going to help him get the grades, or he knows the world. He's very like culturally savvy and he can help him with the style part of it like he's doing now. Like you can't I feel like you don't mix those two characters. Those are two different
Yeah,
traits.
he's playing both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
There needs to be two different characters:
Yeah.
the nerdy one who's just part of the gang, and then the guy who's actually, you know,
He fits in. He's like the king prep or something. Honestly, it should have
exactly.
been the real Palmer doing
Yeah,
this with him to like teach him to be. Here's how you dress like me as a prep kid, and you do that montage with him, and then he jet sets off to France or wherever.
exactly. As they get done shopping, they go outside, and Judd Nelson sees the pretty girl, the Tracy Hoover, the love interest of the movie,
Yep.
played by Jonah Lee, who was in a couple other things like Murder She Wrote, and that's about it. She didn't really do too much in her career. It seems like either you made it past making the grade or you
Or you
didn't.
died in obscurity.
Yeah.
Oof.
So as we transition back to the school, we see the dean and he's kind of talking to this one frat in particular for some reason. This one, I don't know, because it's a prep school, right? So it's not really a
No,
fraternity. Maybe it's just like this one house.
I I wasn't sure about that either. I had either two thoughts. One, it's like they have different houses and that's the one house he's giving the speech to, or it's such a small school that like that was all of the seniors. Because I know a lot of
Yeah,
I mean there were a lot of private schools around me when I was growing up that some of the smaller ones, like they only had graduating classes of like 15, 20 people. So I could
It,
believe
it is
that.
it is kind of odd to me because while they're supposed to be in prep school, which I would assume is pre-college, everyone looks like they're the mid-20s. Judd Nelson is 25 in this movie, yet he's supposed to be playing like an 18-year-old.
Yeah, like if you thought he couldn't pass for a teenager in Breakfast Club, it's just the same exact problem here too. He just looks too
Yeah.
old.
So they're kind of giving the speech from the dean about how this prep school is super important and whatnot. And this is where we kind of get introduced to the villain, I guess you could call him in the movie,
Snooty House.
uh, Biff. Now, Biff is played by Scott McGinnis, and I would say that he's not really, there's no villain in this movie.
No, because he's basically harmless.
He's more of like an annoyance. He's following the rules, but he's not going out of his way to get Judd Nelson in trouble.
Yeah, which is what you would expect from like an actual villain in this kind of story. Like he's trying to get, he's taking action to get Judd to fail his mission to graduate.
Exactly.
He doesn't really do that. He's not really threatening that whole mission at all. Yeah, he's kind of an annoyance.
But you know what mission he was really good in?
What's that?
The mission when they searched for Spock in Star Trek 3. He's Mr.
Oh
Adventure.
my God.
You remember Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock? What a good
What a
movie.
good movie. Remember Star Trek? What a great series. All the great characters and the fun adventures that they had.
The jokes landed most of the
Remember
time
what
when they made the
Double
jokes.
dumbass on you. Remember that
Yeah.
hilarious line from Star Trek 4
Oh,
Voyage Home?
it's so great. The characters you care about, the
Oh.
the the story kind of makes sense for the most part, except for when they're trying to find
And
Jesus.
Spock sacrifices himself at the end of Star Trek To the Wrath of Khan, and it's
It's
so
such
sad.
so good. So
What
good.
were we talking about?
Anyways, back to making the grade. By the way, he went from doing making the grade to the search for Spock. So he did step up in the
He
world,
made it
but
past.
unfortunately, his career ended in 1993 with a movie called Shadow Hunter, where he played coroner's attendant. So, anyways, back to this piece of shit movie. The dean is kind of going over the rules about how these people are super important, and then Judd Nelson's like, "Hey, where are all the babes at?" And the dean goes, "This is just for boys." What's that? All boys? It's like there's a word for it. Who gives a shit?
I think he just says this is an all boys prep academy.
There we go.
Oh, and he faints.
So we're about 30 minutes into the movie, and that's when I start to sadly realize that this movie's not going to get any better. Um, but we do finally get our first scene, and I think our only scene in a classroom, Greg. So
Oh
remember,
yeah, you're right.
the crux of the movie is Judd Nelson going to the prep school to graduate for this other guy named Palmer.
Right.
Yet this is the only scene in which we actually see him do schoolwork.
That's a good
I
point.
thought I thought that the issue of the movie was going to be that Judd Nelson accepts to do the job, realizes that he's stupid, and then he needs to like work hard at getting his degree, right? And he learns
Jeez.
education along the way.
Wow, I feel dumb that didn't even occur to me, but that makes this movie way worse because you're absolutely right. That's exactly what we should have gotten a lot more of is him having to study and cram and all kinds of crazy hijinks where he like tries to cheat on a test, but then realizes that the squeak sidekick can help him study and really learn it and get that whole kind of academic angle to this whole movie. Him having to like actually graduate for him to get paid at the end, but you're right. None of that happens at all.
None of it. Do you think Adam Sandler sat down, watched this movie, and went, "I can do this better," and then squeaked out Billy
And then did
Madison?
Billy Madison.
Because essentially, Billy Madison's the same way. He's about to lose everything.
Right. His trust fund, all that.
Yep. And then he makes a deal that he's going to go back to school, and he does it. And they have scenes where they show him studying, where they show people in his life helping him pass
Right.
and learning and applying knowledge.
And it can be funny when you do that. Those are funny montages in Billy
Yes.
Madison. you could have done that here.
They don't do anything. You get this one scene where there's a senile professor who asks for homework, and Rand, the nerdy guy's like, "This is the first day of school. Like, we don't have homework to turn in."
Ha
And
ha ha.
that's really the scene. That's the joke for the
It's
scene,
just
right?
that I did note that scene for that, like, oh, making fun of the professor because he's senile. Like, it's just a lot of these kind of movies, sort of the bad ones especially, kind of lean a lot on stereotypes and insult humor. Like, haha, old people don't remember things. Haha,
Yep,
women. Haha, fat people. Like, it's just that this is just like a great example of that. Like, this movie does that so many times and it gets way worse.
exactly. It does get way worse. And there's points in which the jokes contradict themselves, and we'll eventually, sadly, get there. Our next scene is Judd Nelson's charging money to watch stag films. And this is, I guess we kind of missed it, but it doesn't really matter. We get introduced to the dorm leader, or the head of the dorm, which is this, uh, his name is Coach Wordman. He's played by Walter Olkowicz. He is a very, I've seen him in that thing actor. He was in Twin Peaks. He was in Arliss. He's been in quite a bit of things. He's very much the actor.
Like, just like a working character actor. That's
Yep,
amazing. Again, there are so many people who have gone on to have productive careers coming from making a grade.
exactly.
Jeez.
And like doing fruitful stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, unlike, yeah. Anyways, so he kind of barges in, but this Coach Wordman character, he's pretty cool. So he just sits down and watches the stag film next to a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah, that was a little weird, wasn't it? Where they're all like, yeah, let's all smash in together on a couch and watch a porno together.
Yeah.
Ew.
That's when we see Biff. He tells the dean what they're doing, and they go and they bust it up. Now, if this was like Animal House, they would have been put on like double secret probation. There would have been something funny that happened,
Yeah,
right?
some kind of funny consequence.
A consequence to the action of the characters. But every time that there's something done, it kind of just magically disappears right after the dean comes in and goes, "Stop doing that," and then it's over.
Yeah. You never hear about it again.
Huh. So our next horrible scene is they're doing PE. Judd Nelson doesn't want to do anything. He does a couple air push-ups, and Coach Wordman's like, "Okay, you're good. Hit the showers,"
And throws him a beer.
and throws him a beer. It's bad.
Could
But
at this point in time, could you still drink when you were 18, or had that been
I
lifted
don't
yet?
I don't know. That's kind of weird because sometimes I watch older movies, right?
Hmm.
And I go, how are these kids drinking and legally obtaining beer? Did people just not care? But then also, I guess the rules back then were different.
Yeah, it was 18 for a long time, and then I think in somewhere in the early 80s or late 70s. I don't know when they lifted it to 21, but
That's such a weird thing that the drinking age changed. So prior to the enactment of the national minimum drinking age of 1984.
wow.
So this movie was at the line.
Wow, I did not expect that. So it was, yeah, they Judd Nelson, enjoy it while it lasts, man.
That's insane
Yeah,
that in 2 years before I was born, that at 18, people could drink. I wonder what
different
the
times.
idea behind that was. Why? Was it just to decrease the amount of people drinking? Did those extra 3 years really
I
gain
don't know. I
anything?
think that there was a lot of like, tightening of that kind of like quote unquote like loose cultural morals at that point in time. I suspect that it was just a push to keep kids from getting drunk, and I don't know, maybe there was like a what was that? Was that organization of like mothers mad, right? Mothers Against Drunk
Mothers
Driving.
Against Drunk
Was that around
Driving?
this time? I don't know. I'm just kind of like
Probably.
throwing out crap that I remember from that time period, but
I think it's just one of those things where, yeah, they're trying to preserve the innocence of America, right?
yeah.
But what people don't understand is that when you do the Streisand effect or do something like this, you're only making it much more alluring.
You're just pushing it underground.
Yeah. So 18-year-olds strive harder to get alcohol and drink more of it.
Can't wait to get
Uh,
those Bud Lights.
exactly. Man, we're all over the place except the movie. So
Yeah.
this next scene, and this scene I think was the clincher for me of where I kind of mentally checked out.
Yeah, it's bad. We talked about offensive to pretty much everyone. This one is, yeah, pretty bad.
Coach Wordman is talking about how they're going to a co-ed dance and that everyone is going to get randomly assigned a date and that no one should be upset by what their date looks like. And that if you want to make it with the girl, you got to compliment her and you got to, say that they're pretty and you got to compliment their dress. And then that's going to get them into their panties. And I think someone was like, should I comment on their
Pantyhose.
essentially like panty line or pantyhose or something
Yeah.
like that? And the coach is like, if you made it that far, you don't got to worry about it.
As he's like grabbing his groin and shaking it at these underage kids. It's so
Yeah.
freaking weird.
What the fuck, Greg? I'm sorry. I almost forgot that part.
Right?
And I'm glad you said that. The entire time he's doing this, he's shaking his dick at these kids. Now his wiener is well within his sweatpants, but
yeah.
What's going on?
It's just wildly inappropriate on so many levels. And I actually wrote a quote down. It's not my quote of the week because it is horribly offensive, but I wrote it down because it made me cringe. He says at the very end of this whole like weird, like got to get in their pants pep talk, which yikes. But at the end of that whole thing, he says, some of the kids says like, but what if she's really boring or blah, 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 like that, some kind of crap like that. And he says, just be nice no matter what, because dogs have feelings too.
Yes. Oh
Jesus
my God.
Christ. Oh my God. Just
it's insane.
We talked about this pretty much every any comedy movie we've done on the podcast so far. They always kind of dip a little bit into this territory where they kind of lean on like racial humor or making fun of, homophobia or misogyny, like any of those kind of like tried and true. We're a bad comedy movie. We want to get laughs no matter what. It just like goes way over the line in this.
Yeah.
Scene.
And it's kind of shocking because this is the only scene that really goes super far into, I guess, treating women lower than men.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe the scene would have been better if the women at the same time were getting like
we're doing the same pep talk
treatment.
See, that would
like that would be funny.
That would be funny because it's kind of like you're changing who you're poking fun at.
Yeah.
That would have been kind of funny.
Or like maybe they're getting the pep talk on how to kind of break down a guy, right? Like tell them that they got like a small wiener or something. I don't know. Like you have to have the other side get their moment too. That way you I don't know. It's just funnier when it's like
that way you're not the joke isn't at the expense of women. It's at the expense of like the situation, and it's more
exactly.
It changes the dynamic where it makes it a little less like uncomfortable. I don't know. I feel like
anyways,
there's really probably no good way to resuscitate this scene.
Oh no,
it's just hot garbage.
So as the people start getting paired up, what's the fat one's name again?
Blimp.
It's something like Tubby.
Blimp.
Blimp is he's okay. So yes, he's overweight, but he's not like a disgusting schlub, but he is overweight. He gets paired up with this, I thought, cute but nerdy redhead, and he sticks his finger in his mouth like ugh. But what's funny is that she does the same thing to him. And she has every right to do that. She's a cute nerdy little redhead. He's a blimp. But anyways, Judd Nelson does see the girl Jonah, the girl that he likes, is one of the potential women. He does the math. He cuts in line. and he swoops in from Biff and grabs the girl. And they start dancing, and she kind of realizes that there's this class difference. He is definitely not acting like
Mm.
most of the
Yeah, the
guys.
preppy Palmer. She's definitely put off at his behavior. There's definitely a little culture shock there.
They're also listening to the song My Sharona
Kind
by the
of.
Knack. It's they're doing like a cover of it. There's like a band, a live band
It's
of and they're playing the song My
it's
Sharona
a
by the Knack.
it's a weird cover though. I don't know why I was so fixated on this, but I was just trying to not pay attention to what they were saying, so I was listening to the music. It's one of those weird covers where it's like a few beats per minute slower than the one you know and think of when you think of My Sharona. It's
Yes.
just slightly slower. That guitar riff is a little bit slower, and it is really off-putting for some reason to me.
Uh so I used to really like the song My Sharona. It was the Knack's one hit wonder.
Hmm.
But then you listen to the lyrics.
Yeah, you do.
Uh oh my little pretty one, you're the one. Uh Let me get a taste of my Sharona. And it kind of talks about how this girl is young.
I like the touch of the younger kind. My
Yes.
Sharona.
So
Gross.
Doug Fieger, who was 25 at the time, met 17-year-old Sharona Alpert,
Ooh.
who inspired a 2-month long run of songwriting, as well as eventually become his girlfriend for the next 4 years. So Doug wrote this song about Sharona,
What a creep.
who he fell in love with when she was 1 year younger than, I guess, legal age of consent.
Yeah, it's not as bad as Jerry
What a
Seinfeld and that girlfriend he had in the 90s, right? Remember that?
oh yeah,
Yeesh.
exactly. There's a couple 80s songs where they're considered bops, but then you listen to them and you're like, what the fuck are they
What did
saying
they
in
actually
this?
just say? Uh,
Um,
but
but
it's a
anyways,
perfect compliment to this horrible shithole movie.
it is. Uh Judd Nelson eventually goes like, "Hey, do you guys have any music from this age?" And they put on some breakdancing music, and Judd Nelson starts breakdancing.
Which was really jarring considering that we just watched Breakin' last week.
Yes. Do you think uh Menahem Golan and they were like, you have to have a moment where he breakdance. Breakin' was a big movie. You
Put it in,
have
the
to
kids will love
have,
it.
yeah, exactly. Do you think that that was like maybe like a studio note?
It would not surprise me at all, especially if they saw the numbers from that and they just like wanted them to shove it in. On the other hand, considering the breakneck pace at which they're producing these movies, it wouldn't surprise me if they were like making them at the same time in the same studio, and one of the extras from Breakin' just like had a walk-on role as the dance double in this scene,
Yeah.
and they just like, whatever, we need a dancer.
Oh, I just burped. That's probably the best part of this podcast so far. But everyone's loving it. Everyone loves that he's breakdancing, and
Uh,
it really gets to the heart of what the fuck's her name? Jonah.
Janie,
What us,
Tracy,
Janie?
Tammy,
It gets to love interest,
number one.
blonde love interest. And she kind of has a turn of heart for Judd Nelson based off of his
Which
breakdancing
it's really
capabilities.
weird, right? Like, did this did this idiot really win over this girl with a breakdance number?
I don't know. It's it is definitely odd, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess they got to keep the plot moving. They couldn't afford to do enough of like a courtship thing between them, but come on. The dancing wasn't that good.
No, it wasn't. But don't worry, it gets worse. The next scene shows Judd Nelson and the gang watching a spy movie, and they kind of make comments on being smooth and suave is how you get the women, right? And I swear, I thought this was a dream sequence coming out. The way that it transitioned kind of made it look dreamy, right? But it turns out this was actually a real scene. It wasn't just inside of Judd Nelson's head. They're now at a fancy how to do party, and he's dressed to the nines, but he's also a bumbling boob and he falls inside of a fountain. There's a couple jokes, but
So low class.
exactly. Jonah loves it, and they break away and they go eat takeout Chinese food. in which they read their fortune cookies in horrible Asian racist voices.
Yeah, they do.
What? I mean,
Oh,
look, I I know it was a different time, but it's so shocking to hear stuff like this.
yeah. Hey,
You would no movie would ever do this
because like,
unless like the character was super deplorable and you're not supposed to
and you're
like
not
them.
supposed like the joke is at that person's expense, not
Yeah,
haha. They're reading fortune cookies with an Asian accent.
exactly.
Ugh, yeah, that was a little kind of a lot of cringy.
This only deepens the bond between these two
Wow,
characters,
you're
though.
super racist too.
Wow.
Wow, we're made for each other. You are
Uh,
high class.
exactly. The next scene is people playing highlight
That's
racquetball,
lacrosse. Highlight.
lacrosse. I know sports.
The highlight. Okay, just so everyone take a second if you're listening to this to pause the podcast and go Google highlight and then Google lacrosse and tell me if you think that those two sports look alike.
Also, highlight is sounded. It looks like Jai. So
Yes.
that might be really hot. Jailai highlight. I don't. They're wearing helmets. They got sticks. They're running in the field. They look like jerks.
Highlight
Uh,
is like super racquetball. It's played indoors, isn't it? With those big like arm scoop things.
arm scoop. Yeah.
Yeah. Highlights.
Uh,
I mean that's probably the cooler sport, honestly.
it's not that popular though, is it?
No,
You used to live in Florida like me. There was a highlight facility in Florida.
of course there was. Oh, Florida. They got duped by that kid in Mad Men when he was selling highlight.
Yeah. It's gonna be the sport of the future.
It's got
Highlight.
big stars and high speed action. Florida's buying.
Why do you think highlight? What the fuck? We don't got time to talk about the failure of highlight.
So the
It is interesting though. The highlight never did catch on because it seems to be pretty fast paced and kind of
I'd rather
dangerous.
watch that than tennis.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, Judd
The
Nelson's rocking out in the field
highlight
with
field.
his what's the sport again called?
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse stick. He's acting like it's a guitar and he's jamming out. Um, and then in comes Palmer's real life girlfriend. Now remember, Judd Nelson is playing the character of Judd Nelson, playing the character of Palmer. So Palmer's real girlfriend comes up and there's like a little bit of touching, but the girlfriend knows obviously that Judd Nelson's not Palmer, but the girl that Judd Nelson likes doesn't realize this because she's like far away,
Yeah, so
right?
she thinks
So
he's
there's
two
like a
timing her
misunderstanding.
with someone else, and it's a whole big love triangle thing.
Exactly. And then we get a really bad montage of Judd Nelson sending gifts to Jonah,
Try and make her feel better.
flowers and a TV and stuff like that. Uh, Judd Nelson then takes up riding horses because Jonah does it too. And there's like a few antics about riding horses. And
Oh, we didn't wear helmets when they were riding those horses.
no, they didn't.
Safety issue.
Um, it's super bad, but they make up and then they have sex. And it's a really awkward long sex
Yeah,
scene.
I mean, it was long and awkward and painful to watch, but like what is a scene like that doing in my funny prep school college boner comedy?
I don't even know. Would you classify this as a boner comedy? There's
I
not enough.
I don't know how I would classify this other than garbage, but it's just it's like it looked like it belonged in like a drama or a
Yeah,
romance or like a romantic comedy, but it was none of those movies. But it was like a 5 minute long, like really like slow, and there's like smooth jazz playing, and they slowly get undressed, and it was not like a funny, goofy college kids, hooking up kind of scene. I don't know. It did
exactly.
not fit at all.
Uh, And now we hit the hour mark, in which I can probably tell you both Greg and I suffer from the same thing of going, oh my God,
Yeah,
there's 43
we're
minutes
like
left.
just over half. Yeah, honestly, this is the point where I really checked out. Like I'm looking at my notes right now, and I can see big gaps in time until I was just like playing on my phone. Like I said, I recorded some video of me, pretending to be falling asleep, and I was surfing Reddit, and I just was checked out. Like the movie was still running, I just was not paying attention. After that,
Yep.
after
And
that,
I
that sex scene was like, nope, I'm out.
can't blame you there. So we're just going to hit the highlights for the next 40 minutes. Somehow, Andrew Dice Clay realizes that Judd Nelson is going to this prep school, and he's like, you owe me money. So Judd Nelson is essentially going, okay, I'll give you the money that I make from after I get the degree, pay you off. That clears our debt, right? And then for some reason, Ronald Lacey also shows up impersonating Judd Nelson's father. And they talk about how Ronald Lacey, the hot dog vendor, is going to give money to the school to get a library built. And then they're going to name it after the dad.
Did I thought I perked up at one point when I saw him like doing his maitre d thing where he pulled out the chair for the dean. Is that what that scene
Yeah.
was? Okay.
Yep. For some reason, that's what they're doing. I think they needed to raise money in order for Judd Nelson to get some award for being the best prep school student
Oh,
ever.
that's right. There was some weird untouched plot point where like the school was
Yes.
hurting for cash and it was like going down the tubes or something. I guess that's this scene is the payoff for that. I
Yeah.
guess.
Palmer shows up again at the school. Despite Judd Nelson being paid to be there, Palmer's, for some reason, shows back up at the school to cause some antics. He plays his dumb cousin from a different country. And I'm pretty sure they called it like Dumbopia, is the country that he's
What?
supposed to be from. It's
Oh, I missed
a
that.
horrible joke. Uh, Judd Nelson, he starts becoming more preppy at the end to where he's being kind of arrogant and to other people around him. And even Palmer goes, wow, he's better at being preppy than I am. And then there's a whole bunch of other gags that involve stealing a car. At one point, Biff, the villain, who is not a true villain, gets expelled from the school because of Judd Nelson's antics. Uh, it makes no
Okay, I
sense.
remember I remember like a shot of him kind of looking disheveled outside when they were doing the graduation.
Yep.
Okay, so he got
Because he
expelled.
doesn't do anything wrong in the entire film.
Okay.
For some reason, he gets the brunt of it.
Or
Uh,
Biff.
Palmer's real dad shows up, but we never get to see him, and he confronts Andrew Dice Clay through a tinted window of a limo, in which he sends Andrew Dice Clay halfway across the world. Uh, and now Andrew Dice Clay is gone.
Wait,
Okay,
what?
we're almost at the end, guys. Stay with me. Judd Nelson is at graduation, and he gets the diploma, and him and Palmer get away with the entire thing. No one is the wiser.
Yeah, they've
And
made success at this point.
yeah, but for some reason during the graduation speech, Judd Nelson spills the beans. But there's no comeuppance. Palmer doesn't lose his degree. He still graduates. Judd Nelson gets the money at the end. Everyone's happy. Everything's copacetic. And then Judd Nelson drives away with his love interest at the end and Palmer because they're all buddies now. And the movie, the credits come and it goes, Palmer and Eddie will be back in Turista coming
Yeah.
soon.
So okay, that because the credits started playing and that awesome song, that legitimately awesome song started playing, so I perked up, and that was the first thing in the credits that I noticed was yeah, these characters will be back in what I assume is a sequel or another
Yes,
movie. Did that actually come out?
it never came out.
Of course, I didn't.
Before the closing credits, the film informs you to watch out for a sequel coming soon. The producers intended to make a sequel titled The Turista, with Judd Nelson's character returning, but due to the poor performance of the box office, they scrapped the idea.
Aw, shucks.
Yeah,
What a shame.
horrible.
Yeah.
Little more trivia here for you. The Andrew Dice Clay role almost went to Jim Carrey, but he turned it
Oh, thank
down.
God. Can you imagine? This stupid movie could have torpedoed Jim Carrey before we got to see him in such classics as Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Yep.
Whew,
Uh,
bullet
kind of
dodged.
insane there. Let's see here. There was another one that I wanted to read. Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
Making the grade, original negatives were tragically lost in a fire, and no one cared.
Returning back to its home world. Uh, I could have sworn there was another one that I wanted to talk about, but yeah. That's kind of it for the movie. Did you know that this movie was rated R for some reason?
There were a couple of F-bombs kind of peppered in throughout, I like maybe two or three. I assume that must be why. I noticed that too, and I was like, oh, why is it rated R? Like we didn't get any nudity, did we? Yeah.
Nothing. Do you think that's uh, why it bombed? It's an R for no reason other than a couple F bombs and maybe a little sexiness. If they cut it down to a PG-13, bored kids on the weekend could have gone
Could
and
have
seen
fallen
this.
for it. Yeah. I mean, I guess you're right. It was too tame to get in the people who are just in it for the TNA, but it was beyond the reach of younger kids who couldn't go to see it. I don't think did PG-13 even exist in '84?
I guess yeah, it would have been either G, PG, or R.
RR, yeah.
So I guess they didn't really have
Yeah.
much of a
But
chance
either way, I
there.
think like the way we kind of talked about it before, where like if you fill in some of the cracks and do make it a little bit more like family friendly, like a goofier thing where you show more of him trying to like actually, make the grade and pass the kind of stuff they were talking about before, you could have made this a more accessible PG film, like a PG comedy, like a
I,
family Billy Madison, but right.
yeah, I don't know. It was such a bland movie.
Yeah, we've said this a million times. It's the worst thing you can be is boring, and honestly, it was bad, but not necessarily in an annoying way. In a lot of ways, I mean, the parts of it were very, very, very annoying. But honestly, by the time I checked out around that horse riding weird sex scene, I was really just more bored than anything. That's why I was like, my mind was starting to wander, and yeah, this is a firm, firm 0 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I
Basically,
give it half a
yeah.
star.
Okay, what's the half for?
I think the one line at the very beginning where it was like,
Ain't nobody paid enough to do this job.
no one paid enough to do this
I
job.
will.
That was the only
Okay,
like laugh out loud moment for
I
me.
agree.
But
I would give. I'll.
I only give I only give 0 stars for ones that I don't finish, and I did finish this one.
Yeah, that's why I have to keep it at a 0 because even though I let it run, I was not watching it. It's a DNF for me, but I would give it an honorary half star for that line and the genuinely good song that they played over the beginning and end credits. That's it.
All right, I found I found the trivia that I wanted to
Oh,
read.
enlighten us.
Uh oh shit, where'd it go?
It
Okay.
got highlighted
New
away.
York Times film critic Vincent Canby walked out of this movie at the hour mark.
No shit. The same. Oh
Yes.
wow. Maybe he also saw that weird sex scene. Is like, nah, I'm
It's
good.
just like he like slaps his knees. He's like, I'm out.
Well,
Yeah, what a horrible movie. And especially when you think of the 80s and you think of movies set in colleges or schools, and
yeah,
there's some really classic ones.
the
Uh,
college party movies, right? It's a whole genre.
exactly. Kind of died out now, but back in the 80s, it was had its heyday, and I can definitely see this is like the filmmakers watched those movies, wanted to imitate it, but went, let's do the exact opposite thing and not make it
And
good.
make it boring as shit.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cool idea for a comedy, right? Like,
It is the idea of like, I think every kid has that idea, especially if you had a twin. Like, oh, I'll send you to the classes that you're good at, and I'll go to the classes that I'm good at, and then we'll be able to
yeah,
make the perfect grade.
plenty of
Um,
opportunity for hijinks in that kind of scenario.
exactly. But they don't capitalize on it at all.
No,
They don't capitalize on. I think it's because everyone goes, no one knows what Palmer looks like at the school. So Judd Nelson can just seamlessly transition into being that character. There's no tension in the movie. There's no tension that Judd Nelson would get caught. Also because they don't create any tension. There's no moment where they go, "Oh, hey, happy birthday," and Judd Nelson's like, "What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about." And
right?
they're like, "It's Palmer's birthday today."
Yeah, I feel like okay, there's three, yeah, like maybe two. Okay, yeah, there's two scenes you could do to build up that tension. One is like you said, there he gets confronted with something about Palmer that he should know but doesn't, and it's almost getting him into trouble. Or two, because it's, oh, I've got to make the grade and pass this exam. Like he should have had to come up like against an exam or a school project or something that he was in danger of failing and had to study real hard or work really hard on a project to do it. Okay, no, I guess
But
there's three. Or the third option would be Biff is actually a real villain and
yeah,
he's got to overcome some scheme that Biff cooked up to try and get him kicked out of school.
yep.
One of those three things needed to happen to make you think that there's a risk of him flunking out or getting expelled or something that he would like lose this whole bet that he had with Palmer.
But it never happens.
Nope. Never happens. No stakes, just a bunch of disjointed jokes at everyone's expense and annoying party scenes.
I really hope that this is our last comedy. I truly hope that Canon realizes that they can't do it. That there's no way for them to be able to do
Do an
comedy
American
and do
comedy.
comedy well.
I don't. I We talked in a previous episode about that. What was their big hit in Israel before they came over?
It
Lemon
was
popsicle.
like the lemon popsicle.
Yeah, maybe I get the impression that they think that they do know comedy and keep trying because they think that they know what American audiences want, and they don't.
I Yeah, I don't know. I have I I I would say that you're right if they had more of a hand in writing this, but
True.
their names aren't on that like that line of
Screenplay
hey,
by,
like
story
we're
by.
exactly or I don't know. It never felt like someone was going, this is what Americans like to see in their movies, but it also didn't seem to be written by someone who was competent enough to write a movie.
Yeah. I guess we'll never know. Who knows? Maybe we don't really know what kind of influence that they had and what was on the screen, but
I mean, I could start trying to find people on Twitter, but then they're going to ask to listen to this episode, and that's where the plan dies.
who could who
Catherine Mary
could who
Stewart.
could who could we get to weigh in who wouldn't be offended by us thrashing this movie?
If I ever met Judd Nelson in real life and I could just offhandedly ask him, like, what the fuck did you do making the grade for?
Oh
I
man,
mean,
I'm
I get it.
sorry.
It's early in his career. He probably needs to show off his capability as an actor, which he did a good job acting in the
Sure.
movie. But what a dog of a movie. Absolute dog.
Yeah. How did this do at the box office? You said it was kind of a failure, right? I mean,
It made $4 million.
oh, I mean, it couldn't have been. How much did it cost to produce? It had to be less than $1 million.
It doesn't say, but I mean it bombed hard enough to cancel
The sequel.
the sequel, which
Hmm.
even if it was like I don't know, a $2 million movie and made double its money back, Canon going, we're not going to capitalize on this.
Yeah,
That's
I guess
that probably says something right
they
there.
it must have been enough of a not enough of a difference between investment and payoff that they just scrapped it. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's hope, Greg.
Don't give me hope.
So the next film that we're watching is called The Naked Face. And despite it sounding like a soft core pornography film,
Yes, it does.
it's actually a 1984 American thriller written and directed by Brian Forbes, starring Roger Moore.
The Roger Moore of James Bond
The
fame.
Roger Moore.
Okay.
Yes. It was also nominated for Best Film at Mistfest, which is a mystery themed festival. So like mystery books, mystery stuff, right?
Mystery media.
Mystery shit. Yes. So this was nominated for Best Film. Now, I'm only reading what I have seen online. This could also be the only mystery film of the year. So by proxy, it's also the best and the worst.
I mean, I feel like most people could count on like one hand the number of mystery films they really know. It's like
Exactly.
Clue and
Clue.
Knives Out. That's all I got.
Like, I guess it would Seven be kind of like a mystery? Or is it that more of a drama?
Or a thriller? I don't know. It's kind of a gray area in terms of genre.
I think mystery thriller, yeah, it kind of muddles the plot. I wonder what the definition of it is. There must be like a MacGuffin in a mystery.
What would the Maltese Falcon be?
I think the Maltese Falcon would be like, it's called a noir film, right? The Maltese Falcon. Yeah. Even though that does have like the most MacGuffin of MacGuffins.
The MacGuffins, yeah, it's in the title.
The Maltese Falcon, which is surprisingly I spelled that correctly, is, let's see here. Where's genre? Noir, film noir genre.
That doesn't help us. Okay.
Yep.
In any case,
but anyways,
yeah, not a lot of mysteries on the general audience's memory, I would imagine.
So, The Naked Face, starring Roger Moore, will be the next film that we watch. I think this might be the only mystery film that Canon has ever done, and the byline for the film is a Chicago psychoanalysis patient. That's, I don't know why. That's really hard to say. A Chicago psychoanalysis patient and secretary are murdered, and he becomes the police's prime suspect, despite his claims that someone is trying to frame him. It sounds like Fugitive.
Yeah, it does.
Which, awesome. Fugitive was badass. I love that movie.
We ain't gonna get Fugitive.
No, we're not. We're gonna get Roger Moore. Beyond Over the Hill Roger Moore.
Yeah, way past his prime. Maybe not way past his prime, but past his prime. He's come a long way since James Bond at this point, 84, 85.
Octopussy was his last one, right? Was that his last Bond film?
I don't know.
But no, it was A View to Kill, which, man, he looked like shit in that one. And this is 1984, so this is definitely like, you shouldn't be doing action.
He's getting whatever roles he can. He's gotta bump up that trust fund. Got to make sure there's good stuff in the inheritance for the grandkids.
And I can say whatever I want about Roger Moore. He's not on Twitter, so I'll never be able to reach out to him.
His kids are going to be like doxing us now.
We'll bust out a Ouija board and we'll try to talk to Sir Roger Moore. I'll accidentally conjure up some other demon while I do this.
GTFO. Ah, damn it.
Not again. I was gonna say I got Timothy Dalton, but he's still alive.
And he was in Hot Fuzz, and it was awesome in it. So he doesn't deserve that.
He's the superior Bond,
yes,
in my opinion, of the two. We kind of already went over multiple times what the quote of the week is, so we'll insert it right here.
Townsend's downstairs.
Oh, screw Townsend. Open a window, will you?
You open the window. I ain't stepping in this room until it's clean.
Hey, nobody said this job wasn't going to have its hazards. What are we paying you for?
I ain't paid enough to do this job. Nobody's ever been paid enough to do this job.
And
wow, podcast magic.
And boy, oh boy, I'm going to say it again. I really hope we don't have another comedy coming up anytime soon, or at all.
No, because if it is, that same quote is just going to continue to be my quote of the week for other movies.
If we just keep reusing the same one, like it's another comedy, just throw this one in
I
there.
ain't paid enough for this job. Oh my god.
That could we use it as if you give a movie 1 star or less, that has to be the quote of the week, no matter what.
No matter what
I
the
ain't
movie
getting
is.
paid enough
Oh,
to do
man.
this.
We ain't getting paid at all.
Exactly. And remember, since we said it,
That's canon.
Waking up to the sound that life is beating, to the drum, heaven bound. There's no defeating, straight ahead, moving